Hello everyone, and it's also 20 years since I've been in Salisbury, so it was 2004, 2005, so it was this time. And thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Let me start this conversation on the integration between Methodists and Waldensians from my family, from personal. Because I'm Methodist, it comes from my mother. It's like the virus, it comes from my mother, hemophilia. And she was Methodist from Northern Ireland, and there have been a lot of Methodists in her family. I think my great uncle was sort of a lifelong moderator. He was like the chair of the Irish Methodist Conference for a long time. Like a third of the Methodist churches in Ireland have a cornerstone with his name, which is not my name, and I'm very happy about that. So I can disguise myself to visit these places. Albert Boland was his name, and my wife is Waldensian from Aquino. Her family is Waldensian. The family of her father, her mother is from the Lutheran Church in Denmark. Okay, so we married and we have 2 kids, 15 and 12, and they asked me, Dad, what are we? And my answer is, I don't know. I have no idea. And then, of course, comes the ecclesial doctrine. When you do confirmation, you will say what you are. You will state who you are. But, of course, that's a silly, patronizing answer. The thing is really that we don't know. Because they are children of the integration, which was established came into effect actually in 1975, which is also the year of my birth. So for me, I don't remember a separated church. So Waldensian and Methodist have always been together, and so it's kind of strange thinking how to separate. And so how did they got together? I don't know. I didn't experience that. I have to read about it. I have to talk to older people about it, but it's not my experience. So what is integration? It's a very clever ecumenical idea of how to merge 2 churches without actually merging them. Because usually ecumenism tends to merge churches and to make one church, one visible church, also in structure and that's usually diversity is sacrificed on the altar of unity. And this wasn't the case of the integration between Methodists and Waldensians, because we have one national ecclesial body, and this national ecclesial body is called Chiesa Evangelica Valdese Unione delle Chiese Metodiste e Valdesi. This is the official name of our church, and it's a contradictory name because it first says Chiesa in singular, and then Union of Churches, Unione delle Chiese.
I think it took years to reach that name.
Unfortunately, I'm dealing with other stuff now. It wasn't my task. So one synod. So the British, because it had the Methodists had a British heritage, so they had a conference. So no more British, Methodist conference, but one synod, one pastoral body, one board. So the Tavola Valdese is the board of the Methodist, and one theological faculty, which kept its name, Facoltà Valdese di Teologia. And but then it's also Chiese. So nationally we are one, but it's a union of Methodist and Waldensian churches that remain Methodist or Waldensian. There is not a local Methodist and Waldensian. There were 4 experiments, they all went bad. To merge one and to try to find, and I'm now pastor of the 5th experiment, and I'm scared, I don't know how to do this. So it all began, so the rationale behind this union of churches comes from 1689, from the Pact of Union, the Cibao, or Cibo, because that's interesting. In the valleys, they speak French, but then it's written Cibao, then they say Cibao, they say Cibo, and so when I was in France yesterday, and every time I have to think, forget what you learn in the valleys, because it's not French. They tell you it's French, it's not. And so when from the glorious return, which is both historical and mythical in the way it's told, the people from the different parts of the valleys made a union, a pact of union. This is why there is one union, which is the Waldensian Church, and which also has the Latin American churches. So we don't have, there is a Waldensian Church in Uruguay, in Argentina, in the Rio de la Plata area, and it's not a separate church because there cannot be a separate Waldensian Church because you are in the union. And this is very peculiar because the Waldensian Church officially is a Calvinistic Presbyterian church, but usually Calvinistic Presbyterian church are national churches. And if a state separates, then you have 2 churches usually that come from one. And this is not the case of the Waldensian Church, which is a very strange animal. And maybe this is why the Anglicans love it so much, because also the Anglican is strange to understand. And the union of, and what happens in these churches? You have Methodist and Waldensian individuals. So you are either Methodist or Waldensian. And when you do confirmation, you have to state what you are. If you are Methodist or Waldensian, you cannot be a Methodist Waldensian unless you are a pastor. And because when I go to represent the Waldensian Church of Trieste, I don't say I'm Methodist because people don't care. It's not an interesting thing to share. I don't correct people if they say, well, you're the Waldensian pastor. No, actually I'm Methodist. That's the wrong way to begin a conversation. But that's also what a lot of Italian Protestants do. So this is the Waldensian Church. No, it's a Methodist church. And what is your priest? Oh, it's called pastor. And this is it's a community. It's a Gemeinde. No, that's the problem when you are a little community of people. You tend to speak your own language and think that the word is wrong because you don't speak your language. Yeah, that's the problem. Then we have to change that a bit. And
it's not a problem for the English because all our institutions are founded that way. Never only specifying.
Yeah.
Which is why the gift internationally is, look, what is this mixture of 25 different countries or whatever, or more?
27.
27.
27.
And then already, yes, you don't overemphasize things. You just let them be what they are.
Yeah. And so this is what was thought in 1975, and it's it's a strange decision, original decision, but the fruits of this decision is that the Union of Waldensian and Methodist Churches is still there. It still meets in the synod, it still has pastors, even if fewer pastors than they were, still has people, even fewer people than they were, and it's actually now it's more important than ever in the Italian cultural and political agora forum, because I have the 8 per 1000 here, it's a gadget from the this is a tax paying scheme, and we have at least 1 million of Italian sympathizers who would never enter a Waldensian church, but they these are the actual figures. They are this is complicated to explain. As everything Italian, there is a way to support churches through your income tax, and you can choose which church to support. And we receive like 400 or 500 signatures, but in my house we are 4 and we are 2 income revenues, so let's say more or less 1 million people who know and sympathize for the Waldensians, and that's interesting. And we don't know what to do with it. It's a mystery. We never asked for this. We only accepted the scheme because when we understood that if we didn't put our name there, the money would go to the Catholic Church. And we said, no, we take our money. We take our money at least, and then it became the money of others. Okay, what do we do with that? And we don't spend that for the churches, for the mission of the church. We use that for diaconal work, cultural work, and social work. And that brings us, say, in forums, like because a lot of social institutions are funded by us, and that's weird. So they asked me, why did you fund us? I don't know, it was a good project. That's why we funded it. Anyway, so in 1975, the Methodists had to be safeguarded in the Union by having quotas in every united body, so in the Tavola, in the board, 7 people, at least 2 were Methodist, and so on and so on. And why? Because the integration was very good for Methodists. Even if Methodists in my youth were always complaining about this, Methodists were in deep trouble at the time of integration. Very roughly, the story of Methodism in Italy is that we had 2 missions from the late 1860s, one from Britain, one from America, one conference style, one Episcopal style, and the American mission was very aggressive towards the Catholic, and when Mussolini and the Pope agreed in 1929, in the hidden agenda was the destruction of the American mission. And this is why the American mission went bankrupted. They could not get money from America, and they merged with the British mission. And this is why when the Methodists arrived to the integration, they have a British structure. And in 1961, the Methodists were given emancipation from the British Methodist Conference, and in a few 5-6 years they bankrupted. So it wasn't a wise choice to emancipate the Methodists. We had to sell our jewels, especially 2 churches of Palermo, which was a monumental church in the Protestant triangle made by the Waldensian, the Methodist, and the Anglican church in Palermo. Now there is an ugly hotel instead of it. And a beautiful chapel in St. Mark's Square in Venice. that we had, and in order to pay for that, we had. So the Methodists were in deep trouble, and it was sort of a Waldensian rescue to the Methodists. And I always think it was always very generous. I remember Methodist people complaining about this, but I always thought it was very generous to take care of this very fragile church. One of the questions I've been asked often is, how do theologically go together, Methodists and Waldensians? And it's interesting because I'm considered a Waldensian Methodist, and there are many Waldensians who are more Methodist theologically than I am. They're not really theological questions. That's the thing. The theology of the union of Methodist and Waldensian churches is, let me say, is a bad word, more contextual than anything else. So officially, we have a Genevan-style Presbyterian church with Anglican influence and a Methodist church. But actually, what was more important was that we are not Roman Catholic. And this is the moderate. Then the extremist is we are anti-Roman Catholic. So this was part of the identity of both Methodists and Waldensians. We were all fond of the Reformation. So, interestingly enough, the Waldensian and Methodists were the ones who published Luther works in Italy. And the Lutherans in Italy still don't understand why they did that. Before publishing Calvin or Wesley's works, we published Luther works. And because we thought it was more important, and that's maybe in the ecumenical spirit. The Bible has a crucial role in our theology and spirituality, and the Bible is absent from the Italian culture. Up to Second Vatican Council, the Bible was a forbidden book, just like Salman Rushdie books. It was strangely enough, and it's interesting. We have this extreme right-wing government, and the education secretary said we should go back to read the Bible in school. And I thought, it's never happened. It was forbidden. It was forbidden. You were a bad citizen if you were reading the Bible, because a good citizen is Catholic, generally. And we were also deeply Italian. And that's important because we have two other, I consider the Anglican Church a Reformed church, and also the Catholic Church considers it a Reformed church. And the Anglican and the Lutherans are present in Italy, but they are ethnic communities. They are the church of the English-speaking ex-empire people and the Church of Germans. There has never been an idea from the Anglican, well, there was some, but it didn't win, from the Anglican to make an Italian Anglican church made of Italians. There was, and it merged with the Methodist in the 1800s and late 1800s, the Lutherans, they just never thought of having an Italian Lutheran church, at least in the last couple of 100 years. They thought of that a long time, but in the Lutheran world, you still have the cuius regio, eius religio. So, okay, that land is Catholic, and so we keep it like that, and we have our churches, whatever. So this leads to a very strange situation for the Methodist and Waldensian churches in Italy, because in the Confession of Faith of the Waldensians, the title of it is the Confession of Faith of the Catholic Apostolic Churches of Piedmont, also called Waldensians. And that Catholic is combined. So the Waldensian Methodist churches are the churches of Protestant Catholicism. So if you are a Protestant, if you want the Bible, the Sola Scriptura, if you the Solus Christus, all of this, and you are Italian, you may have a Lutheran tendency, you may have an Anglican tendency, but you will become Waldensian or Methodist, because they are the Italian Protestant churches. And this is it's a vocation of the Waldensian Methodist churches in Italy. It's not something they looked for, and something maybe they don't want even. But we have to deal with diversity. Every time I meet adult people who want to become Methodist or Waldensian, their theology is vaguely based on an ecumenical Reformation thing, not strictly Calvinist, not strictly Methodist. And since most of our new membership is made of people who become Methodist or Waldensian in their adult age, and not of children of Methodists and Waldensians, we are losing, we have to welcome them. Very happy that people are choosing us. And another thing, we are very European. So being Italian, but also anti-Italian. Being Italian, being Mediterranean, but we are the Mediterranean version of France, Swiss, Germany, England. And that also united Methodists and Waldensians. And also this idea of transparency, accountability, responsibility, which we feel is very Protestant, and we feel it's common. And lastly, the idea of freedom and human rights. Today there is a lot of backlash against human rights, which for me is completely not understandable. But for Methodists and Waldensians, it looked like human rights were invented by us. So it's not like, we are the Church of Human Rights. No, because there were people who were persecuted for their religion, and this is wrong. And we should not, this is universally wrong. And that's what made us together. So matters like predestination or pre-science of God are not part of the debate in our churches. They are the debate in our churches in the ecumenical week, because especially if I meet with the Jesuits, he's going to ask me about predestination. What do you think of predestination? You bad person. You believe in predestination. You want us all in hell. No, I just want Jesuits in hell. Sorry. No, I want also them to be with us. So it's interesting how the theological questions were theological, but they were really on the side. They were never in the main topic. They were never the main topic of discussion when we got together. And there is roughly this social separation, distinction, between Methodists and Waldensians. In Italy, Methodists have a strong social tradition, and that's something that the Waldensians didn't have. Not the Waldensians of the valleys, I'm talking about the Waldensians of the cities. The Waldensians of the cities were very bourgeois. they used to be very rich. They're not anymore. And but the Methodists had a big social mission. I'm now pastor in Trieste, and the Methodist Church was doing a lot of work with AA, Alcoholic Anonymous, yeah, and because it was a big harbor at the time, at the end of 19th century, and alcohol was a problem. So there was a big work with poor people, and Trieste never cared about poor people. Doesn't care today about poor people. Trieste is a strong bourgeois city where poor people just don't exist. And it's interesting how the Methodists were sort of foreign body in, and that is still doing. So usually there was this caricature distinction. The Methodists were more socially minded, the Waldensians were more theologically minded. And I know a couple of Waldensian ministers who would disagree with the fact that the Waldensians are very theologically minded. So in the end there was this contamination between these two traditions based on the fact that we are the Italian Protestant Church. And this is what really matters. And there is a downside to that, because the valleys, we are, I don't know if I can say that, but we are losing the valleys. It's more and more complicated to find people from the valleys to put in our board, in the board of the church. The churches of the valleys are not anymore the backbone of the Waldensian and Methodist churches. And that is a problem because, as you see in politics, for example, a winning party is the party that can keep the backbone and gain other people. If you don't gain other people and keep the backbone, you don't go anywhere. If you gain other people but lose the backbone, it's a problem. So we strongly need, as churches, the Waldensian valleys, even if I would never live there. It's a miracle when you go there. I'm more of a city boy. that's why. And so the question is, again, like my children, I don't have an answer. The question is, 50 years of integration, now what? I think we have two possibilities for the now what. One is to think if the integration as it is still good for the future, if it works like that, if we need to change things, if we need to reform the integration, because 50 years have passed, a lot of people, the people who signed the integration pact, I think they all died, and or is the integration something that is holding back? So we cannot move forward because the integration says that. You know, at the time it was a very revolutionary idea, and I think it was a very fruitful idea. I'm not sure that every time we have questions like, okay, now I am the pastor of the Waldensian and of the Methodist Church of Trieste. They have the same pastor, we share the same service, in the same building, one catechism, one Sunday school. When they come to confirmation, what do they, the confirmation, the integration pact says they have to choose. So is that drawing back, or so? I don't have an answer or a clear answer for this. I just don't think it's. I think it's problematic now that we would need to go forward, but we